Daewon rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the screen in front of him. The clock showed 3 in the morning station time. He should have gone to bed hours ago, but something was wrong with the communication system. Again. The Galactic Coalition Station Harmony 7 floated in space like a giant metal flower. Inside its walls lived thousands of aliens from 50 different worlds. Each species talked in different ways. Some used sounds. Others used lights or smells or even electrical pulses. Daewon's job was to make sure they could all understand each other. Tonight, the translation network was acting strange. Several species had complained about hearing weird noises in their messages. Daewon pulled up another diagnostic report and frowned. Everything looked normal on paper, but his gut told him something was off. He leaned back in his chair and listened. The communication bay was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Daewon had always been good at hearing things others missed. As a kid back on Earth, he could hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 houses away. His mother said he had ears like a bat. That memory made him smile. He picked up his personal audio scanner from the desk. It was a device he built himself, better than the standard coalition equipment. While their systems only listened to official channels, his scanner could pick up almost any sound frequency. Just for fun, he turned it on and swept it across the room. Immediately, something caught his attention. A high-pitched sound, fast and repeating. It was so high that most species couldn't hear it at all. Daewon adjusted the scanner and isolated the signal. The pattern was clear. 3 quick pulses, then 2 long ones, then 3 quick again. Over and over. It was desperate, urgent. Someone was calling for help. Daewon sat up straight. His heart began to beat faster. He traced the signal through the station's network. It wasn't coming from inside Harmony 7. It was coming from outside, from one of the docking bays. He grabbed his equipment and ran. The corridors were mostly empty at this hour. A few night shift workers nodded at him as he passed. Daewon took the elevator down to the docking level, his scanner still picking up that frantic signal. Docking Bay 7 was cold and smelled like fuel. A cargo ship sat on the landing pad, its metal hull scarred with burn marks. Several bay workers stood around talking to each other and filling out reports on their tablets. Near the ship's ramp stood a creature that made Daewon stop and stare. She was about his height but looked nothing like a human. Her body was covered in dark purple fur. 2 large wings folded against her back, the membrane between the bones shimmering with pale blue light. Her face was angular with large eyes and small sharp teeth. She looked like a dragon and a bat mixed together. The creature was making sounds, clicks and chirps and high whistles. She gestured wildly with her clawed hands, pointing at her ship and then at the bay workers. They looked uncomfortable and confused. "Ma'am, please calm down," one worker said slowly as if talking to a child. "We can't understand you. Do you have a translator?" The bat dragon creature clicked louder, more frantically. Daewon could see panic in her large eyes. He looked down at his scanner. The distress signal was coming from her. She was the one calling for help, but no one could hear her. Daewon walked closer. "Excuse me," he said to the workers. "What's going on?" The lead worker, a tired-looking man named Taemin, shrugged. "This Kairoth pilot came in hot about an hour ago. Her ship's beat up pretty bad. She keeps making noise at us, but her translator unit is broken. We can't figure out what she wants," Kairoth, Daewon repeated. He knew a little about them. They were rare in this sector. Bat-like aliens who used sound to see in the dark, like Earth bats. They flew cargo ships between distant worlds. The Kairoth female noticed Daewon looking at her. She rushed toward him, clicking and whistling even faster. The sounds hurt his ears. He held up his hands gently. "Wait," he said. "Wait, please." He pulled out his scanner and connected it to a small speaker. His fingers moved quickly over the controls, adjusting frequencies. If the Kairoth used echolocation like Earth bats, maybe their language was in a frequency most equipment couldn't pick up. He pressed play. The speaker crackled, then made sounds. Not human sounds, but clicks and whistles similar to what the Kairoth was making. Her eyes went wide. She froze, staring at the device in Daewon's hands. Then she started clicking again, but slower this time, more controlled. Daewon's scanner picked up her sounds and tried to make sense of them. The translation wasn't perfect, but words began to appear on his screen. He read them and felt his blood run cold. Stranded. Colony ship. 3,000, dying, help, please help. He looked up at the Kairoth. Her eyes were full of tears. She clicked again, softer now. "No one hears. Only you," Daewon's mind raced. A colony ship with 3,000 people stranded somewhere. He turned to Taemin. We need to contact Station Command right now. Taemin frowned. About what? She just had a rough flight. Her ship needs repairs, but there's a ship full of her people dying out there, Daewon said, his voice sharp. She's been trying to tell everyone, but her distress call is on a frequency the coalition systems can't detect. The other workers looked at each other doubtfully. Taemin crossed his arms. If there was a real distress call, the system would have picked it up. That's what it's designed for. The system has a blind spot, Daewon insisted. He showed them his scanner. Listen. This signal has been broadcasting for hours. It's a standard Kairoth distress pattern, but it's in a frequency range our equipment ignores. Taemin still looked skeptical, but something in Daewon's voice made him pause. I'll call it in, he finally said. But don't expect much. Command doesn't like false alarms. While Taemin made the call, Daewon turned back to the Kairoth. Using his scanner, he asked her questions. Her name was Vexlara. She was a medical supply pilot. She had been traveling near a colony ship when she saw it lose power. The ship had sent out a distress call, but no one answered. Vexlara tried to help, but her small ship couldn't carry 3,000 people. She flew to the nearest station, here to get help. But when she arrived and called for help in her own language, no one understood. The station's automatic systems didn't recognize her frequency. The translators didn't work. She had been clicking and calling for an hour, and everyone thought she was just upset about her damaged ship. Daewon felt anger building in his chest. The coalition called their translation network universal, but it wasn't. It only worked for the species with enough political power to make their needs heard. Smaller groups like the Kairoth got forgotten. 20 minutes later, 2 security officers arrived with a tired administrator. The administrator's name was Ji-hoon, a middle-aged human with gray hair and a patient expression. He listened to Daewon's explanation while looking at the scanner data. This is concerning, Ji-hoon admitted, but I need to verify this with the Kairoth representative before we can authorize a rescue mission. There are 3,000 people dying, Daewon said. How much verification do you need? Ji-hoon gave him a sympathetic look. I understand your frustration, but coalition protocol requires confirmation from the species' official representative before we commit resources. I'll contact Captain Vexlara immediately. Daewon wanted to argue more, but he knew it wouldn't help. Bureaucracy moved slowly, even in emergencies. He looked at Vexlara. She stared back at him with desperate hope in her eyes. For the first time in hours, someone had heard her call. Now the question was whether anyone would answer in time. Captain Vexlara arrived 2 hours later. She was taller than Vexlara, with darker fur and scars across her wings. Gold metal bands wrapped around her arms, marking her military rank. Her face was hard and cold as stone. She walked into the conference room where Daewon, Ji-hoon, and Vexlara waited. Her eyes swept over them with barely hidden contempt. When she spoke, her translator worked perfectly, her voice sharp and clear. I was told there is a situation involving one of my people, she said. Explain. Ji-hoon gestured to Vexlara, who immediately began clicking and whistling in her own language. Vexlara's expression didn't change as she listened. When Vexlara finished, the captain was quiet for a long moment. There is a colony ship, Vexlara finally admitted. The Nest of Stars. It left our homeworld 6 months ago carrying civilians to a new settlement world. We lost contact with it 3 days ago. Then it's true, Daewon said, leaning forward. We need to send a rescue ship immediately. Vexlara's eyes fixed on him. You are human. This does not concern your species. 3,000 lives concern everyone, Daewon shot back. Watch your tone, Vexlara warned. You know nothing of our ways. The Kairoth government is handling this matter through proper channels. We do not need outside interference, Vexlara clicked angrily. Daewon didn't need his scanner to know she was arguing with her captain. Vexlara clicked back, harsh and commanding. The younger Kairoth lowered her head, but Daewon could see fury in her eyes. Ji-hoon cleared his throat. Captain, perhaps we can work together on this. The coalition has resources. We do not need charity, Vexlara interrupted. Our government will send ships when the proper authorizations are complete. How long will that take? Daewon asked. 2 weeks, perhaps 3. They'll be dead in 2 weeks, Daewon said flatly. Vexlara said their life support is failing. Vexlara's wings twitched. For just a moment, something like pain crossed her face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold military discipline. The Coalition procedures exist for a reason. We cannot simply abandon protocol because of one pilot's emotional report. Emotional? Daewon stood up, his chair scraping back. She's the only one who tried to help them. She flew here for rescue, and you're talking about protocol? Daewon, Ji-hoon said quietly, a warning in his voice. But Daewon was too angry to stop. Your people are dying. You know where they are. What kind of leader values paperwork over lives? Velthera moved fast. In one smooth motion, she was in front of Daewon, her face inches from his. Her teeth were very sharp up close. You dare question my leadership? You understand nothing. If I bypass our government to request coalition help, it shows weakness. Other species will see the Kairoth as unable to protect our own. That puts all my people at risk, not just 3,000. So you'll let them die to save face, Daewon said quietly. Velthera's clawed hand grabbed his shirt. For a moment he thought she might hit him. Then she let go and stepped back. You are young and foolish. In space, politics keep species alive. Not heroics, she turned to Ji-hoon. I will file the proper requests with my government. Until then, the coalition will take no action. That is my official statement. Velthera walked out. The door closed behind her with a heavy thud. Vexillara made a sound like a wounded animal. She curled her wings around herself, trembling. Daewon sat down next to her. He didn't need words to understand her pain. Ji-hoon sighed heavily. I'm sorry. Without the Kairoth government's approval, I cannot authorize a coalition rescue mission. My hands are tied, so that's it? Daewon asked. We just let them die? I didn't say that, Ji-hoon replied carefully. He looked at Daewon for a long moment. Station regulations require me to report unauthorized use of coalition resources. However, I cannot report what I do not see. Do you understand? Daewon met his eyes. Slowly, he nodded. Good, Ji-hoon said. I'm going to my office now. I'll be very busy with paperwork for the next several hours. I won't have time to check the docking bay manifests. He stood up and walked to the door. Before leaving, he added, There's an old rescue vessel in Bay 12. It's scheduled for decommissioning next week. Someone really should check its systems before it's scrapped. Then he was gone. Daewon looked at Vexillara. She looked back at him. He pulled out his scanner and typed a message. The speaker played it in her language. Will you fly us there? Vexilara's eyes brightened. She clicked rapidly. Yes, yes, yes. The next few hours passed in a blur. Daewon couldn't take a coalition rescue ship alone. He needed a crew. He started with people he trusted. Bora was first. She worked in the medical bay, a kind woman with gentle hands and a steel spine. Daewon found her finishing her shift. When he explained the situation, she didn't hesitate. I've treated Kairoth patients, she said. Their biology is tricky, but I can help. When do we leave? Next was Grix, a Telvanni mechanic. Grix had 4 arms, gray skin, and a talent for fixing anything with an engine. Daewon had helped him once when station security was asking uncomfortable questions about some missing parts. Grix owed him a favor. A rescue mission? Grix's 4 hands gestured excitedly. Dangerous and probably illegal? I'm in. The last person they found was Sin, a young Kairoth who worked in the navigation department. He was small and nervous, his fur still showing the lighter colors of youth. When Vexillara explained their plan in his language, Sin's wings shook. I can't, he said through a translator. I'm not brave like you. Vexillara clicked softly at him. Daewon's scanner picked up her words. You were on the nest of stars. You got away in an escape pod. You know the way through the nebula. We need you. Sin looked down. I left them. I ran away. You survived, Vexillara said gently. Now you can help save the others. After a long moment, Sin nodded. They met at docking bay 12 near midnight. The rescue vessel was old and battered. Its white paint faded to gray. But Grix checked the engines and declared them sound enough. She'll fly, he said. Maybe not prettily, but she'll fly. They loaded supplies quickly. Food, water, medical equipment, emergency oxygen tanks. Bora packed everything she might need for mass trauma care. Daewon brought his communication equipment and every scanner he owned. As they prepared for departure, alarms suddenly blared across the bay. Red lights flashed. Daewon's heart sank. Someone had reported them. Then the alarm stopped. The lights went out. In the sudden silence, they heard a voice over the intercom. Attention Bay 12. Experiencing technical difficulties with docking clamp system. Clamps will be offline for approximately 10 minutes for emergency maintenance. All scheduled departures delayed. It was Ji-hoon's voice. The docking clamps released with a hiss. Or departures may proceed at pilot's discretion, Ji-hoon added. Safe travels. Vexlara didn't waste time. She jumped into the pilot seat, her clawed fingers dancing over the controls. The engines roared to life. The ship lifted smoothly off the pad and turned toward the bay exit. As they passed through the atmospheric shield and into open space, Daewon looked back at Harmony 7. The station grew smaller behind them. Somewhere on board, Ji-hoon was probably deleting security footage and rewriting logs. He was risking his career to give them this chance. Daewon wouldn't waste it. Vexillara set course for the Vryn Nebula. The journey would take 18 hours at maximum speed. In the co-pilot seat, Sin pulled up star charts, his hands shaking slightly as he marked the navigation points. The nebula is dangerous, Sin said quietly. Radiation storms, sensor interference. Ships get lost in there and never come out. Good thing we have someone who knows the way, Bora said encouragingly from behind them. Grix was already elbow-deep in the engine access panel. I'm routing extra power to shields. The radiation will be rough on this old ship. Daewon sat at the communication station. He modified the sensors to detect the Kairoth frequency range. Standard sensors used light and electromagnetic waves to scan space. But in the nebula, those wouldn't work well. Sound, however, traveled differently. If he could detect the colony ship's distress call, he could guide them through the interference. It was a long shot. But humans had always been good at long shots. As the nebula grew larger on their view screen, Daewon felt fear and excitement mixing in his chest. They were really doing this. 5 people in an old ship, going against orders to save 3,000 strangers. He glanced at Vexlara. She sat straight in her chair, wings folded tight, eyes fixed ahead. She had been calling for help for hours with no answer, until one human stopped and listened. Now they would see if listening was enough. The Vryn Nebula looked like a storm frozen in space. Purple and green clouds of gas twisted together, shot through with lightning that never ended. Daewon watched through the view screen as their small ship entered the outer edge. Immediately, every alarm on the ship started screaming. Radiation levels climbing, Grix called out, his 4 hands working frantically. Shields holding but barely. The ship shook. Vexilara's hands stayed steady on the controls, adjusting their course with small, precise movements. Beside her, Sin stared at his navigation screens, which flickered and sparked. Sensors are going crazy, Sin said, his voice tight with fear. I can't see anything. We're flying blind. Daewon took a deep breath and activated his modified scanner. While the ship's normal sensors tried to use light and radio waves to see through the nebula, his scanner listened for sound, the high-frequency distress call that only the Kairoth could make. For a long moment, there was nothing but static. Then, faint but clear, he heard it. The same pattern Vexlara had been broadcasting. 3 quick pulses, 2 long, 3 quick. A cry for help echoing through space. I've got them, Daewon said. Bearing 273, distance approximately 40,000 kilometers. Vexillara adjusted course. The ship dove deeper into the nebula. The shaking got worse. Bora grabbed onto her seat as medical supplies rattled in their containers. Through the swirling gas, something massive appeared. The colony ship Nest of Stars was enormous, 10 times the size of their rescue vessel, but it floated dead in space, dark and still. No lights, no power, just a giant metal tomb. Oh no, Sin whispered. Vexillara clicked something soft. Her wings drooped. Wait, Bora said, checking her medical scanner. I'm reading life signs. Thousands of them. They're alive in there. Hope flared in Daewon's chest. Get us alongside. We need to dock. Vexlara maneuvered their ship next to the colony vessel. Grix put on a spacesuit and went outside to manually connect the docking tube. It took him 20 minutes of careful work. Finally, the green light appeared. They had a seal, the airlock opened. Cold air rushed out from the colony ship. Daewon's breath fogged in front of his face. He clicked on his helmet light and stepped through. The inside of the Nest of Stars was a nightmare. Emergency lights flickered weakly. The air was thin and cold. Every surface was covered in frost. And everywhere, hundreds of Kairoth huddled together in tight groups. Adults wrapped their wings around children. Families pressed close to share body heat. Their bioluminescent patterns had faded to almost nothing. They're hibernating, Bora said softly, trying to conserve oxygen. Smart, but they can't last much longer. Vexillara made a sound of anguish. She ran to the nearest group and clicked frantically. A few Kairoth stirred, their eyes opening slowly. When they saw her, they clicked back weakly. Alive. Still alive. Sin stood frozen in the doorway, staring. "There are so many," he whispered. "We'll get them out," Daewon said firmly. "Bora, start with the children and elderly. Grix, I need you to check their power systems. Maybe we can get life support running again." For the next hour, they worked frantically. Bora moved through the ship, using her medical scanner to find the Kairoth in the worst condition. She marked them with glowing stickers. Priority evacuation. Daewon set up his communication equipment throughout the ship. Using his scanner, he broadcast instructions in the Kairoth language. "Wake up, stay calm. Help is here." Slowly, the colony ship came alive. Kairoth began moving, helping each other stand. Parents carried children. The stronger ones helped the weak. They formed lines heading toward the docking tube. Grix found the engine room. The power core was still intact but offline. He worked his magic, coaxing it back to life. Lights flickered on. Warmth began flowing through the vents. The Kairoth clicked with relief. But as they loaded the first group onto the rescue vessel, Daewon did the math. Their ship could hold maybe 800 Kairoth if they packed tight. The colony ship had 3,000. They would need multiple trips. And every trip meant flying back through the nebula, unloading at Harmony 7 and returning. Hours of travel time. "The power core is unstable," Grix said, his face grim. "I got it running, but it's not going to hold. Maybe 6 hours before it fails completely." 6 hours. Not enough time for multiple trips. Daewon's mind raced. They needed another solution. His thoughts were interrupted by a new voice on the radio. "Unidentified vessel, this is Coalition Patrol Ship Arbiter. You are engaged in unauthorized rescue operations. Stand down immediately," Daewon cursed under his breath. A massive ship appeared on their sensors, cutting through the nebula. It was sleek and military, Coalition markings bright on its hull. A face appeared on their view screen. The captain was a Zentari, a species that looked like tall, thin reptiles. His scales were dark blue, his eyes cold. "I am Captain Krell," he said. "You have violated Coalition space protocols. Cease all operations and prepare to be boarded." "We're in the middle of a rescue," Daewon said. "These people are dying." "Proper rescue procedures were not followed," Krell replied. "There are protocols for situations like this. Quarantine procedures, medical screenings. You cannot simply move thousands of aliens without authorization." Vexillara pushed Daewon aside and faced the screen. She clicked and whistled loud and angry. Daewon's scanner translated her words. "My people have been calling for help for days. No one came. The human came. He heard us when your precious coalition was deaf. How many other species are screaming in frequencies you refuse to hear?" Her words seemed to hang in the air. Captain Krell's expression didn't change, but he was silent for a moment. "Nevertheless," he finally said, "regulations must be followed." "While you follow regulations, they die," Vexillara said. She turned away from the screen and opened a channel to all frequencies, broadcasting in every language the ship could manage. "I am Vexillara of the Kiroth Nest of Stars. For 3 days we called for help. Our government said to wait for proper procedures. The coalition said to follow regulations, but one human stopped and listened. One human came. Not because it was proper, not because it was authorized, because it was right." Her voice echoed through space. On Harmony 7, people stopped what they were doing to listen. On other nearby ships, crews gathered around their communications stations. Across dozens of worlds, species heard her words. The message went viral. Within minutes, the coalition was flooded with calls. "Why didn't you answer? How many distress calls are you missing? What good are protocols if people die waiting?" Captain Krell's face went rigid. "You are making this very difficult." "Good," Vexillara said. While the argument continued, Daewon had an idea. "Grix, what if we don't evacuate the colony ship? What if we tow it?" Grix's eyes widened. "It's massive. Our ship doesn't have that kind of power. What if 2 ships did?" Daewon looked at the patrol ship on the screen. It was a military vessel with powerful engines, strong enough to tow a colony ship easily. "Captain Krell," Daewon said, "help us tow this ship out of the nebula. You can keep arguing about regulations afterward, but right now you have the power to save 3,000 lives. Will you use it?" Krell's face was unreadable. The silence stretched. On the colony ship, thousands of Kiroth waited, watching. Finally, Krell spoke. "Attach tow cables to coordinates I'm sending you. We will pull you out of the nebula. Then you will all surrender to Coalition custody for processing. Agreed? Agreed, Day One said. Grix rushed to attach the cables. The patrol ship's engines roared to life. Slowly, impossibly, the massive colony ship began to move. Vexlara guided their rescue vessel alongside, adding their smaller engines to help. The journey out of the nebula took 2 hours. The ship shook and groaned. Alarms blared constantly, but they kept moving. Just as they reached clear space, Grix shouted a warning. The colony ship's power core just went critical. It's going to explode. How long? Day One asked. 5 minutes. Maybe less. We need to evacuate now, Bora said. But there were still 2,000 Kiroth on the colony ship. No time to move them all, Day One thought fast. Grix, can you manually vent the core's plasma? Buy us time? Maybe. I'd have to do it from inside the engine room. Then go. Grix ran. The 4-armed alien moved through the colony ship faster than anyone. He reached the engine room and began working, his hands moving in a blur over the controls. Meanwhile, everyone else formed a chain. Kiroth passed through the docking tube as fast as possible. The patrol ship opened its cargo bays, taking on more. Every second counted. Grix's voice came over the radio. I can vent the plasma, but someone has to stay here to hold the release valve. It's broken. Soon as I let go, it closes. Understanding hit Day One like ice water. Grix, no, get everyone out, Grix said calmly. I'll hold it as long as I can. There has to be another way, Day One said desperately. There isn't, and we both know it. There was a smile in Grix's voice. Tell station security I died doing something stupid. They'll believe that. The venting began. The core's timer slowed. 10 minutes, 15, 20. Enough time to evacuate everyone. The last Kiroth crossed to safety. Vexlara clicked frantically, calling Grix to come back. But he couldn't leave his post. Day One stared at the colony ship. His friend was in there holding a valve, giving them all life with his own. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. Then he had one more idea. The escape tunnel, Sin said suddenly. The one I used. The docking bay of Harmony 7 Station was packed with people. News drones floated everywhere, their cameras recording. Coalition officials stood in neat rows, their faces serious. And behind them, hundreds of station residents crowded to watch. The rescue vessel landed heavily. Steam hissed from its damaged hull. The patrol ship came down beside it, equally battered. Both ships had barely survived the journey back. When the airlocks opened, Kiroth poured out. 3,000 of them, wings spreading wide as they tasted fresh air. Children clicked with excitement. Parents held each other and cried with relief. The elderly moved slowly but smiled. The docking bay erupted in sound. Kiroth's song mixed with cheers from the crowd. For a moment, it was celebration. Then Jihoon stepped forward with a security team. His face was sad but determined. Day One, he said formally. You are hereby reprimanded for unauthorized use of Coalition resources. Your actions put lives at risk and violated multiple station protocols. He paused, then added more quietly, I'm required to say that officially. Day One nodded. He understood. I do it again. I know, Jihoon said. He almost smiled. That's noted in your file. Before anyone could say more, the crowd parted. Captain Velthura walked through, her military bearing perfect as always. The other Kiroth fell silent as she approached. Vexlara tensed, ready for anger, but Velthura didn't look angry. She stopped in front of Vexlara and did something unexpected. She pressed her wing against her chest and bowed her head low. It was a gesture of deep respect among the Kiroth. I was wrong, Velthura said, her voice carrying across the bay. I chose protocol over lives. I chose politics over my people. She looked at Vexlara, then at Day One. You chose what was right. I'm ashamed and I'm grateful. Vexlara clicked softly, forgiveness in her tone. Velthara straightened and faced the crowd. Let it be known that the Kiroth owe a debt to these brave souls. A human heard our call when we ourselves would not listen. That is a lesson I will not forget. The Kiroth in the bay erupted in clicking and whistling. Their wings glowed bright blue and purple, bioluminescent patterns flashing in waves. It was beautiful, like watching a light show made of living creatures. Other species in the crowd started cheering too. Humans, aliens of all kinds, clapping and making their own sounds of celebration. For a moment, all differences faded. They were just people grateful that lives had been saved. Bora helped set up a medical station right there in the bay. Human doctors worked alongside Kairoth healers. They checked the refugees for injuries and cold damage. Most were weak but alive. A few needed serious care, but they would survive. Daewon found a quiet corner and sat down. He was exhausted, every muscle aching. Grix sat beside him, all four arms crossed. "Think we're in trouble?" Grix asked. "Definitely," Daewon said. "Worth it?" Daewon looked at the Kairoth families reuniting, at the children playing despite their ordeal. "Yeah, worth it." Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. The story spread across the galaxy. News networks picked it up. Social media exploded with discussions. The recording of Vexilara's speech, "How many other species are screaming in frequencies you refuse to hear?" was played millions of times. Other species started coming forward. A small insect-like race called the Trill revealed they had been trying to report pirate attacks for months, but their communication method used scent chemicals that the Coalition equipment couldn't detect. A deep space fungal collective had been attempting to share valuable scientific data, but their signals were too slow for standard systems to recognize as intelligent communication. Story after story emerged. The Coalition's Universal Translation Network had massive blind spots. Entire species were being ignored, not because they weren't trying to communicate, but because the systems weren't designed to hear them. A movement began. People started calling it the Frequency Coalition, a grassroots effort to make sure everyone could be heard. They demanded changes to the communication systems. They wanted technology that could detect all frequencies, all methods of communication, not just the ones used by politically powerful species. Daewon's personal communicator never stopped buzzing. Species from across the galaxy contacted him. Could he help them be heard? Could he design equipment for their unique biology? Could he teach others how to listen? He started working 18-hour days. With Grix's help, he designed simple scanners that could detect a wider range of frequencies. He made the blueprints open source, free for anyone to use. Within weeks, engineers across multiple worlds were building their own versions. But not everyone was happy about the changes. Some species had benefited from the communication gaps. Smugglers used undetectable frequencies to coordinate illegal operations. Corrupt officials had buried evidence in signals no one could hear. Powerful governments didn't want smaller species gaining a voice. 3 weeks after the rescue, Daewon was walking back to his quarters when he felt something was wrong. The corridor was too quiet. His instincts, the same ones that helped him hear that first distress call, screamed danger. He turned. 3 figures in dark clothing stepped from the shadows. They moved fast. Daewon ran. His heart pounded. Footsteps chased him. He turned a corner and crashed into something solid. It was Vexilara. She took one look at his face and understood. Her eyes went to the 3 figures behind him. She clicked once, sharp and commanding. Then she spread her wings wide, blocking the corridor. The attackers hesitated. Vexilara was smaller than them, but her teeth were bared and her claws extended. She clicked again, and this time Daewon's automatic translator picked up the meaning. "You will not touch him." One attacker pulled out a weapon. Vexilara moved like lightning. Her echolocation let her see in complete darkness, let her track movement faster than eyes could follow. She hit the weapon away and struck with precise blows. The attacker went down. The other 2 backed away, then ran. Vexilara didn't chase them. She turned to Daewon, checking him for injuries with gentle clicks. "I'm okay," he said, breathing hard. "Thank you," she clicked softly. It meant, "You listened when no one else would. Now I listen for you." Security investigated the attack, but the assailants had vanished. No identity, no trace. Jihoon increased protection around Daewon and the others. They had made powerful enemies by exposing the system's flaws. A week later, the Coalition Council called an emergency session. Daewon was summoned to testify. He stood in a massive chamber, surrounded by representatives from 50 species. Some looked curious. Others looked hostile. The council speaker, an ancient bird-like creature named Avik, gestured for him to begin. Daewon took a breath. He had prepared a speech, facts and figures about communication gaps and technological limitations. But standing there, looking at all those faces, he changed his mind. Instead, he played a recording. It was a collection of distress calls from the past 10 years. All of them in frequencies the Coalition systems couldn't detect. All of them ignored. The chamber filled with sounds. high-pitched whistles, low rumbling vibrations, chemical scents converted to audio signals, strange patterns that seemed like random noise but were actually words crying out for help. Daewon let the recording play for 5 full minutes. The council members grew increasingly uncomfortable. Some looked away, others covered their ears. When it ended, the silence was crushing. "These are the voices you didn't hear," Daewon said quietly. "Some of these calls are years old. Most of the people sending them are dead now. They died while calling for help that never came." He pulled up a specific signal. "This one is from a Kairoth colony ship. 3,000 people. You all heard Vexilara's speech. You know how that story ended. But only because I happened to have the right equipment. How many others didn't get lucky?" Speaker Avik's feathers ruffled. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Upgrade the communication systems," Daewon said. "All of them. Make them truly universal. I've already designed equipment that can do it. It's not expensive. It's not complicated. It just requires admitting that the current system isn't good enough." A Zentari representative stood. "The cost would be enormous. Every station, every ship, every communication hub in Coalition space would need modifications." "And the cost of not doing it?" Daewon asked. "How much is a life worth? 3,000 lives? How many more will die because we're too cheap to listen?" Arguments erupted across the chamber. Some species supported the changes. Others worried about costs, about exposing their own communication secrets, about upsetting the status quo. The debate raged for hours. Daewon stood and answered their questions, stayed calm when they attacked him, provided data when they demanded proof. Bora, Grix, and Vexilara sat in the gallery supporting him with their presence. Finally, Speaker Avik called for a vote. The chamber fell silent. One by one, representatives cast their decisions. The holographic display showed the tally, 63% in favor. The measure passed. The coalition would upgrade its communication systems. It would take years and cost billions, but it would happen. As Daewon left the chamber, reporters swarmed him. Questions flew from all directions. He waved them off, too tired to talk. Outside, his friends waited. "You did it?" Bora said, hugging him. "We did it," Daewon corrected. "All of us." Vexilara clicked happily. Her wings glowed bright blue. Around the galaxy, her people were celebrating. 6 months after the Coalition Council vote, the changes began. Every station received new equipment. Engineers installed wide-frequency scanners. Old systems were updated. It was slow work, but it was happening. Not everyone was happy. 3 species withdrew from the coalition entirely. They said the changes cost too much. They said it gave too much power to smaller species. But most people knew the real reason. These species had used the communication gaps for their own benefit, and now that advantage was gone. Daewon watched the political drama unfold but didn't get involved. He had different work to do. He founded the Frequency Project, a small organization dedicated to helping species communicate. It wasn't part of the coalition. No government funding, no political strings. Just people who believed everyone deserved to be heard. Vexilara joined him immediately. Together they traveled between worlds, meeting species that had been isolated for generations. They documented unique communication methods. They built custom equipment. They taught local engineers how to maintain the systems. On a small moon called Whisper's Rest, they met a fungal species that communicated through releasing spores. The spores took hours to reach each other, making their conversations incredibly slow. But with the right equipment, their messages could be converted to faster formats, letting them participate in galactic society for the first time. On a water world named Deep Current, they discovered an intelligent species of singing fish. Their communication had been mistaken for random noise. Now, with proper translation, their ancient poetry and scientific knowledge became available to everyone. Everywhere they went, Daewon and Vexilara were greeted with gratitude and joy. Species that had felt alone in the universe now had voices. Children who had never spoken to anyone outside their world now made friends across the stars. Back on Harmony 7, the communications bay had transformed. It was no longer a lonely room with one tired human. Now it was a vibrant hub where engineers from dozens of species worked together. The walls were covered with charts showing different frequency ranges. Strange equipment hummed and clicked and sang. Hyun ran the bay now, a young Korean woman with bright eyes and endless enthusiasm. She had studied under Daewon before he left, learning everything he could teach. Now she was teaching others, creating a whole generation of engineers who understood that universal meant everyone, not just the majority. Another signal, Hyun called out one day. Unknown frequency, requesting assistance. Her team jumped into action. Within minutes, they had identified the species, translated the message, and sent help. What would have taken days or might have been missed entirely now took minutes. This was the new normal. The Kairoth refugees had made Harmony 7 their home. Their colony ship was gone, but they built a new community on the station. Kairoth architects designed living spaces that accommodated wings. Kairoth teachers opened schools. Kairoth businesses sold goods and services. Captain Velthera visited often. She had resigned from her military position and now worked as an advocate for refugee rights. She traveled the galaxy, speaking about the danger of putting politics above lives. Her speeches were powerful and uncomfortable. Many officials hated her, but many more people listened. One evening, Daewon returned to Harmony 7 after a 3-month trip. He was exhausted but happy. The Frequency Project had helped 8 new species make first contact with the Coalition. 8 worlds that had been alone now had neighbors. Ji-hoon met him at the docking bay. The administrator looked older, more gray in his hair, but his smile was warm. "Welcome back," Ji-hoon said. "You've been busy." "So have you," Daewon replied. "I heard about the new station protocol. All incoming ships must carry wide-frequency detection now." Ji-hoon nodded. "Your influence. The Council hated it at first, but after we prevented 3 different disasters by catching distress calls early, they came around. Nothing convinces politicians like avoiding public embarrassment." They walked through the station together. Daewon noticed changes everywhere. Aliens of all kinds mixing freely. Communication booths where people could talk across language and frequency barriers. Children playing together despite coming from completely different worlds. "You started something important," Ji-hoon said quietly. "Bigger than I think you realize." Daewon shook his head. "I just listened. Anyone could have done it, but you did it. That's what matters." A celebration was planned for that night. It marked 1 year since the rescue of the Nest of Stars. The Kairoth community had organized it, but everyone on the station was invited. The main plaza was packed. Food from dozens of worlds filled long tables. Music played, not just one kind, but a mixture of sounds from different species blended together. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. The result was strange and beautiful. Daewon found his friends in the crowd. Boro was talking with Kairoth healers, sharing medical techniques. Grix was showing young engineers how to modify equipment, all 4 hands gesturing enthusiastically. Sin, the nervous young navigator, was now a confident pilot. He ran his own small transport business, carrying goods between worlds. Vexillara found Daewon and clicked a greeting. She looked happy, healthier than when they first met. Her wings glowed bright with bioluminescent patterns. "Big crowd," Daewon said. "They all came to celebrate," Vexillara replied through her translator. "Not just us, everyone. We showed them that helping strangers isn't foolish. It's necessary." On a raised platform, Captain Velthera stepped forward to speak. The crowd quieted. "1 year ago," Velthera began, "my people were dying. We called for help, but no one heard. No one except a human who refused to stop listening." She paused. "I was wrong that night. I said politics keep species alive, but I learned that compassion keeps us alive. Compassion and the courage to act," she gestured to Daewon. This human could have ignored one distress call. It wasn't his problem. It wasn't his species. But he heard someone in pain and he responded. That is what we should all aspire to. The crowd applauded. Daewon felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. He didn't like being the center of attention. He tried to slip away, but Vexillara caught his arm. "Let them thank you." She clicked softly. Young Sin approached the platform carrying something carefully. It was a traditional Kairoth instrument, like a wooden flute but more complex. He offered it to Velthara, who accepted it with reverence. "This is a memory song," Velthara explained. "We sing it to honor those who save us, to make sure we never forget their kindness." She lifted the instrument and began to play. The sound was haunting and beautiful, high notes that only Kairoth could fully hear, mixed with lower tones that everyone could appreciate. As she played, other Kairoth joined in. They clicked and whistled, their voices blending with the instrument. But something remarkable happened. The other species in the crowd began adding their own sounds. Humans hummed. Other aliens contributed their unique musical expressions. The communication equipment scattered throughout the plaza picked it all up and blended it together. The result was incredible. A symphony made by 50 different species, each contributing their own voice. It shouldn't have been possible. But here, in this moment, it was real. Daewon closed his eyes and listened. He thought about that first night, hearing a desperate call through his scanner. He thought about the choice he made to answer instead of ignore. Such a simple choice, really. Listen and respond. But that choice had changed everything. Vexillara stood beside him, her wing touching his shoulder in a gesture of friendship. Around them, thousands of beings celebrated together, not because they were the same, but because they had learned to hear each other's differences. When the song ended, the silence was respectful. Then came cheers and applause that shook the plaza. Ji-hoon approached Daewon. "The council wants to give you an official award. The Coalition Medal of Valor." Daewon shook his head. "I don't need an award." "I told them you'd say that," Ji-hoon smiled. "So they're donating the medal's monetary value to the Frequency Project instead. 500,000 credits now, that was useful." Daewon grinned. "Tell them thank yous," the celebration continued. Daewon slipped away to a quieter spot on the observation deck. Through the transparent walls he could see stars stretching in all directions. Somewhere out there were billions of species, billions of voices, some already connected to the galactic community, some still alone, waiting to be discovered. His communicator chimed. A new message. Hyun's voice came through. "Daewon, we're picking up something strange, a signal from the edge of Coalition space, really far out. It's not matching any known frequency pattern. Might be a new species trying to make contact." Daewon felt that familiar spark of excitement. "Can you isolate it?" "Working on it. Should have a clean signal in 10 minutes. Want to come take a look?" He glanced back at the celebration. His friends were there, happy and safe. The Kairoth were there, alive because someone listened. The galaxy was there, slowly learning to hear everyone, but somewhere in the darkness someone was calling. Someone who needed to know they weren't alone. "I'll be right there," Daewon said. He started walking toward the communications bay. Vexillara appeared beside him, having noticed him leave. She didn't ask where he was going. She just clicked once and walked with him. That was how it worked now. Someone called. Someone answered. Together they made sure no voice went unheard.